right, good morning. Welcome to another Bright News discussion. I've got a good friend on. He's been on before, and that's none other than Surit Dasgupta. So, Surit, how you doing, man?
Doing fine, Shannon. How are you doing? I hope
I'm all right.
everything's okay in good old Washington, D.C. Or is it Washington? Sorry, not D.C.
Washington State. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's all good.
Washington.
Yeah, it's good here, man. We got our usual weather, rain. So,
Oh,
you know,
it's raining now?
yeah, that's the,
Wow.
that's our that's what we're that's what we're stereotypically known for, you know. Rain in the
Yeah.
mountains. Rain in mountains. But yeah, um, I wanted to get you on, man, to talk about something that was a little interesting for me, which is the whole Dracula story. I know, I mean, Halloween is already over. We're already, you know,
Yeah, we're celebrating Halloween a couple of weeks late, aren't
yeah.
we?
So we we
Yeah.
uh we're closer to I guess Christmas now than we are Halloween. But still, I think this is an interesting story, and I think it's maybe kind of better to talk about it after all of that, so that we can kind of get a real understanding of maybe what the Dracula story is all about, and maybe if there are some deeper meanings behind it. You know what I mean? There's some stuff that maybe people really don't understand about the story, you know, and some of it's very well, I'll just say very Christian undertones and overtones. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bram Stoker wrote a novel in the late 19th century, and it was a different time, it was a very Christian time, as you have said, alluded to.
Mhm,
uh, Dracula, the story itself, is it's a pretty straightforward good versus evil story, no
mhm,
gray areas at all,
mhm,
no
mhm,
nuances, nothing of the sort. So
yeah,
people might be pretty, like, if some people are getting into vampire lore,
mhm,
if they start reading Dracula, they'll be pretty surprised at how black and white the story is.
mhm, mhm,
Because the antagonist Dracula is pretty much an evil character,
yeah,
not
yeah,
a romanticized character at all. I'm
yeah,
talking about the novel.
yeah,
So in that era, it's a whole different atmosphere, historically speaking, the environment and everything.
mhm,
It was the Victorian era, I think, late Victorian era.
mhm,
And it was the Christianity that was believed in during that time, was a very a kind of puritanical Christianity, if you may. No, I'm not talking about the denomination, the Puritans,
mhm,
but I'm talking about a stream of Christianity that was very, very, very concerned with social order.
mhm,
How you
mhm,
dress, how you behave in public,
yeah,
and how you conduct your personal affairs, like to you know to what effect are you willing to be dignified, so
yeah,
on and so forth.
yeah,
So the heroes of the characters are all Christians in that story.
mhm,
The story is told not in a usual third person way, point of view, but more from how characters are corresponding to each other through letters, or entries in their journals,
mhm,
and so on. So by this kind of storytelling, we not only get to know the plot, but we
mhm,
also get to know what the characters are thinking and what they are pondering on. And
mhm,
oftentimes they are really appealing to God, they are appealing to Christ, and they're appealing to they're praying to God to defeat the evil that has invaded the shores of England.
mhm, mhm.
So
Now, what
Dracula.
Yeah. Sorry. Now what would the evils be that are approaching the shores of England at that time? Like, what would that be?
Yeah, the Dracula again, that the vampire character of Dracula
Hmm.
is kind of an embodiment, like you have to get into the psyche of that era, what
Hmm.
those people were thinking at that time.
Hmm.
So these are what these are like. The Englishmen, they considered themselves part of civilization or
Hmm.
orderly civilization, right?
Hmm.
So at that time, many people living in the western part or western, Europe
Hmm.
and yeah, the United States and so on, they considered uh, the eastern, part of the world
Hmm.
to be pretty mystical, pretty
Right.
chaotic, pretty out there, like
Yeah. Okay.
beyond beyond rationality. So
Okay.
Dracula is situated in Transylvania,
Yes.
right, in
Yeah.
Romania. That's like on the edges of the Eastern Europe,
Yeah.
right?
Like off the edges of like the Hungarian, I mean the
Right.
Austro-Hungarian Empire, Bohemia. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
The novel starts off with this real estate guy,
Hmm.
Jonathan Harker.
Hmm.
He travels on a business trip to meet this mysterious client who wants to buy property in England. And
Okay.
this mysterious client happens to reside in Transylvania, in Romania, right?
Hmm.
And so when he comes upon this land, he meets a bunch of gypsies, filled with superstition, filled with whatnot. They are afraid of the night. They're afraid to go out in the dark. They constantly warn this Englishman Jonathan to not, like, be take care of yourself. They give him a cross,
Yeah.
and to guard yourself from evil. So
Yeah.
they're already receiving. He's totally, what you can say, he's completely uh, he doesn't know what they're on
Yeah.
about, like what
Like
could
he's
possibly be
ignorant.
that.
He's
Well,
he's
he's
ignorant of it.
ignorant in a very rationalistic sense, like
Yeah.
he's part of England in this society which believes in science,
Yeah.
rationality,
Yeah.
enlightenment ideals, and that so
Mhm.
on. And the only the if Christianity has a part to play in England, it's only in terms of like how you it's not something to do with battling demons and that kind
Yeah.
of thing, right? It's a
Right.
Christianity that is very privatized,
Right. 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 Right.
so
And
so
orderly,
he
right? You talk about like,
yeah,
so this is the time, okay, not to cut you off,
yeah,
but this is the time in which the in which England and the British have an empire.
right.
And they want to do the rational thing. They want to be empirical. They want to be,
Discipline, all that
yeah.
sort of stuff,
Mhm.
typical Englishman, so British character traits.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he says these people are filled with superstition, like they're probably crazy, they're probably frightened of wild animals or something.
Yeah.
But he and like so this is we to make a long story short, he gradually makes his acquaintance with Count Dracula,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And this Count Dracula, he's obviously a very supernatural figure and so on. And
Hmm.
Jonathan is puzzled more and more, like he's not being able to see this person in the mirror, not being able to see him, not being able to, like very bizarre, strange things, like the castle where he lives, like wolves are howling all the time,
Yeah.
mysterious carriage writer picks
Yeah.
him up, like there's like aura of like uh, ghostly energy all
Hmm.
around.
Hmm.
So he gets he gets acquainted with Count Dracula, and very soon he is taken, he is imprisoned in that castle, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and like the Count uses this character Jonathan as a gateway into England, through
Hmm.
paperwork, acquiring property, so that he has a place to put his casket over there,
Hmm.
so he'll be safe during the daytime, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So so this is like the general environment of around the Dracula story.
Hmm.
And like if you look at it gets very interesting if you look at the story from a Girardian lens, right,
Hmm.
from a
Hmm.
mimetic theory, anthropological lens.
Hmm.
So England is obviously a very Christianized society at that time, right?
Right.
Like or not maybe in terms of like exorcisms, battling demons and so on, but in
Hmm.
a very sophisticated way, in a very scientific way, they Christianized.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what could be their greatest fears? Their greatest fear would be invasion from a barbaric force
Hmm.
from outside of civilization.
Hmm.
So Dracula is an embodiment of that. Dracula is a very eccentric character, comes from a long line of no, foreign nobility,
Hmm.
and he sort of invades England.
Yeah.
He stows away on a ship,
Uh-huh.
kills all the crew members of the ship,
Yeah.
and then arrives in his manor. I think it's Exeter or something. I keep forgetting the name of his manor.
Uh-huh.
So he comes into there, and immediately he starts biting people, like vampire stuff, biting
Hmm.
people, feeding on them in a sort
Hmm.
of cannibalism kind of
Hmm.
way to to push to hammer the point home that this is a very, like, even though this person is of noble blood or whatever,
Hmm.
he's an embodiment of barbarians from the east, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's invading and he's spreading everything. He's turning people into vampires.
Yeah.
He turns one of the main characters of the novel, Lucy, into a vampire. And
Okay.
then he targets Mina, who is Jonathan's wife to be,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So you've seen the movies, like the two main female characters. One of them gets turned into a vampire.
Yep.
They have to kill her. So
Yep.
he turns people into vampires. It's like spreading a disease,
Yes.
right?
Yes. 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 Yep.
It's like not only has the invader come into, and this is not just a psyche of a European or whatever.
Yeah.
Any indigenous people who are suddenly invaded by an outside force always fears disease or
Yeah.
whatever, right? They
Yeah. Right.
always there's always the risk of disease, and
Yeah.
Dracula obviously is spreading the disease of vampirism.
Yeah.
uh, so, from a Girardian point of view, Dracula is obviously a pagan deity,
Yeah.
and he's the reason why I say that is look at the Christian story.
Hmm.
The Christian story, Jesus gives his blood for our
Hmm.
salvation. What
Hmm.
does Dracula do?
He
He
takes
takes
blood.
blood,
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
in order
Mhm.
to survive. He can't
Yeah.
survive if he doesn't feed on people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
Jesus is here to deconstruct cannibalism.
Yeah.
Dracula is a cannibal. He feeds
Yeah.
on people's blood,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are like classic. Like if René Girard would have read Dracula, he would have recognized all the classic, characteristics of
Yeah.
what makes a Christian literature.
He should. He should have.
So
He should have. He did. He did too much. He did too much working on Shakespeare, bro. He should have. He should have
well, I
taken.
mean, you can't blame him, right, bro? Because Shakespeare is such a vast volume. It's like a lifetime's work in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
So, like these are the things we can already see signs.
Hmm.
Now, now I mean, like, let's pan away from the Dracula story a little bit and let's look at how vampires evolved in arts, movies, literature, and so on.
Okay.
Now, enter the 60s, right? The 60s and the 70s.
Hmm.
You have this very famous actor called Christopher Lee playing Dracula during this time.
Okay.
Christopher Lee is you have seen him in Star Wars, right? Lord of the
Yes.
Rings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So he was very famous during that time for portraying Dracula,
Yeah.
like to the point where, where the studio would not even do the movie without him. He was
Okay.
contractually obliged to play the Dracula. The movies got worse and worse and worse, but they had his signature on the contract. You have to play Dracula till this. And there was some of, like, barring the first few movies,
Hmm.
the all the later part of the the movies that came afterward, they were all trash. so
Except
so
for one, bro. I gotta say this. There was one
yeah.
that came out. It's called Blackula. Have you heard?
Oh, that, yeah, that's a black exploitation
Yeah. Yeah.
parody of Dracula. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
that came out actually during the same time that Christopher Lee was playing Dracula.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
We'll have
and
to
there was,
get into that because there's
yeah,
something I wanted to ask you about that. But yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what were the 60s and the 70s best known for?
Hmm.
There was Christopher Lee was from England, and the scene in England was pretty, swinging 60s, that kind of thing, right? The
Hmm.
sexual revolution was in full flow during that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, Dracula becomes a kind of a sexual character, icon of
Hmm.
sorts.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you see the posters during those times, he had a
Yeah.
pretty lady, he was biting into the pretty lady's neck, and all
Yeah.
of that.
Right.
So
Very
the all
seductive and
yeah, exactly.
very
Yeah,
seductive and everything. Yeah. 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 Hmm.
yeah. So he became Christopher Lee became and Dracula as a result of that became a very chicks were digging Dracula all of a sudden, during that time.
Hmm.
So this is the time where they made Dracula, and then there was another movie that came out in the early 90s
Hmm.
with Eddie Murphy, Vampire
Yep.
in Brooklyn. That
Yep.
was
Yep.
also a parody of Dracula,
Yeah.
albeit like it was more comedic, I think.
Yeah, it was.
So, so now what happens is all of a sudden you have this writer called Anne Rice.
Hmm.
Anne Rice wrote this book called Interview with the Vampire,
Yep.
and
Okay.
and that and that totally flipped everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Not only now that vampires already they have this sexual kind of erotic aura around them,
Hmm.
but now they were like the tragic figures. They were
Hmm.
like the marginalized figures, who were
Yeah.
always in the shadows. They were
Yeah.
doomed to eternity,
Yeah.
and they were so. Anne Rice was very intentional on modeling the vampire, mythos
Hmm.
around the gay mythos,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So what happened was this: the tragedy and the marginalization of the vampires
Hmm.
were now mirroring the real life marginalization of the LGBTQ
Wow.
community. So
Wow.
that's why Anne Rice was a big proponent of same-sex marriage and all
Yeah.
of that. She had converted to Catholicism later on, but
Hmm.
this was what she was thinking and talking about during that time.
Hmm.
And that novel, Interview with the Vampire, it became a huge bestseller.
Yeah.
This is like in the early 80s, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And then because of the success, she started writing more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you have these novels and you have other people mimicking her style, and
Yep.
this
Yep.
gave rise to a kind of goth culture. The vampirism and all of that, this was gelled into the goth culture, which
Hmm.
also started to rise in the 80s.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
goth culture, the goth music and all of that, goth
Yeah.
rock and all of that,
Yeah.
that all came as a reaction to the hippie and all of that, right?
Wow.
The hippies.
Flower
So the
power.
hippies
Yeah.
were all about lovey-dovey, like
Yeah.
tolerance, boomer stuff, typical.
Yeah.
And the goth was like, F you, F your lovey-dovey and everything. We
Yeah.
got sexually molested as children.
Mm,
How are we
mm.
going to stay happy about that? We're going to paint our
Okay.
faces, white and all of that shit, and we're going to make all of the most misery filled
Yeah.
dreadful music you could imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow.
that whole
Wow.
vampire thing got it connected and gelled into that whole goth scene during
Right.
that time.
Wow. I did
So
not know that. I would have never, I would have
yeah,
never, I would have never put that together. You know what I'm saying? That never,
yeah,
but it kind of, okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes
yeah,
sense, man.
yeah.
Wow.
And then at the end, then then flash forward, you have whole bunch of Dracula movies. Then in the think it was in 1990 or 91, Francis Ford Coppola comes out with this Dracula movie, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And now between Bram Stoker's Dracula
Hmm.
and Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, you have all of this cultural evolution in between.
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden, Dracula is no longer in that movie. Dracula is no longer a demonic entity. He's
Hmm.
no longer a threat to Western civilization. He's no longer any of these things.
Yeah.
He is now a tragic character,
Okay. Yeah.
because what Coppola did was Coppola gave him an origin story that he was Vlad the Impaler from Romania,
Yeah.
and he lost
Wife.
his wife
Yeah.
or his fiancée. I can't
Yeah.
exactly remember, but he lost the woman whom he loved,
Yeah.
and as a result he cursed God,
Yeah.
and as a result of that he was cursed himself
Hmm.
by being doomed to eternity, by
Hmm.
being doomed to never dying, and he has to drink blood to survive.
Hmm.
So you have this tragic backstory, and you have this concept that Dracula is not inherently an evil man, that he was
Hmm.
actually a noble person who was defending his homeland, but because of circumstances, he turned into evil ways,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and so he
Very much like we were just you just talking about that actor who played in Star Wars. Very much
Christopher
like
Lee,
Darth Vader or something.
yeah, Darth Vader, yeah, Darth
Hmm.
Vader,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So this all, you see, this all is the story of Dracula is a good way to see how Western civilization have progressed throughout the
Mm.
decades.
Okay,
So if
yeah.
you want to know how Western civilization was during the late 19th century, how they were thinking, because they were very black and white in those
Yeah.
times, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This was good and good versus evil, no gray areas.
Hmm. Hmm.
And all of a sudden now you have like people are not inherently evil and so on. So where Dracula is not an inherently evil person. It's
Hmm.
just that tragically he came to this kind of state that he is in right
Yeah. Yeah.
now.
But I guess from a Christian perspective, if you want to look at the story, because we talked about, like, in the original, there's all these, what do you call them, motifs, I guess it would be, or
Yeah,
something that allude to. I mean, it's straight up. I guess it doesn't allude to, but it's just straight up, like, the cross.
yeah,
They can't come out. That he can't. It can't be in light and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And so, um, I guess looking at it from a Christian perspective, you know, would you say that it's more redemptive to kind of have that backstory of him, being a he lost his wife and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, and then yeah, well, let's start there, and then I'll ask you about the Blackula one, because that one is that one is yeah. I'm gonna ask you about that, but yeah, okay.
yeah. That's the real deal, bro. Blackula. That you could write a whole volume on that book
Yeah,
alone.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but all jokes aside, you were asking me. isn't it kind of more Christian to have Dracula have a tragic backstory?
Hmm.
That's the question, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, yes, of course it is, because see, nowadays, like, we were humanity was once in a place where we didn't understand the world. We didn't
Hmm.
understand what was outside of our countries, outside of our neighborhoods.
Hmm.
So there were always boundaries, right?
Hmm.
So one of the things that kept nations, societies safe was the belief that the people on the outside didn't have the best intentions in mind,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
they were like, how you would tell your children, right? If you had kids,
Hmm.
you would say, don't do that,
Hmm.
or something bad might happen to you, or something, like the tooth fairy won't give you
Hmm.
money, or whatever, like the fairy tales you tell your kids.
Hmm.
Like, that the fairy tales are not real, but
Yeah.
the reason for saying it is because you want your kids to grow up, a proper person,
Hmm.
who can conduct himself or herself properly in
Hmm.
society.
Hmm.
So these things were like the myth that people in civilization tell themselves during that time in 19th century and prior to that,
Hmm.
was that, you don't mingle, you don't go outside of your natural habitat,
Hmm.
because there's a strange culture out there
Yeah.
which we don't
Yeah.
know what. So you have you may run into cannibals, you
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
run into, somebody who may do bad things to you.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then
Dracula.
to keep in mind, like at that time, we're talking about Romania and stuff like that. I think, if we incorporate the whole, backstory like of Vlad the Impaler and everything, I believe he was fighting against the Ottomans at the time.
Yeah.
They were a very present
Mhm.
threat to
Right.
to Eastern
Yeah.
Europe and to Austria-Hungary. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that could
Yeah.
also be seen, it's like they're outside of
That's a
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a brilliant observation, Shannon.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
There's a brilliant thing that Coppola did with that backstory,
Hmm.
but you reminded me of that. So
Hmm.
I was the myths that we tell each
Hmm.
other, amongst ourselves, to keep
Hmm.
us safe, to keep our societies orderly, so that we don't devolve into chaos, right? I mean, we already see what unfettered mass migration does to countries like England and so on, right?
Hmm.
It you have to have some kind of boundaries, so on.
Hmm. Hmm.
But one of the paradoxical things about that is what later versions of Dracula brings to light. In order to keep your country safe,
Hmm.
you have to have a notion that the guy on the other side of the fence
Hmm.
is might want to kill you. You want to uh, otherize or dehumanize that person a little bit.
Hmm.
That's how this works actually.
Right.
Do you see where
Because
I'm getting?
it gives you kind of like a
Right,
mental,
a
like
fear, like, like
uh,
how you have to have, in mainstream Christianity, how you have to have a little bit of fear of hell
yeah.
to, pray, do
Yeah.
your regular prayers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how this thing work. Doesn't mean it's bad or good or either way. It's just how it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, people are naturally like that. People
Yeah.
are naturally, in order
Skeptical.
to protect, they naturally, they want to protect their tribe, they want to
Yeah.
protect their natural habitat. So
Okay.
you have to have a little bit of dehumanization of the other tribe,
Yeah.
so that the boundaries are there.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, some people have said you don't need to dehumanize to have boundaries. Well, that may be the case,
Hmm.
but people during that time thought like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So fast forward to today,
Hmm.
what you mentioned about the backstory, here we have Vlad the Impaler, and we're
Hmm.
talking about in the Draculas, because real life Vlad the Impaler did not become Dracula. He
Yeah.
just he
Right.
was executed by the Ottomans.
Right.
So in the Dracula mythos, we have this Vlad the Impaler, who is a protector of Western civilization from the barbarian hordes of the East, right? The
Mhm.
Ottomans, who were pretty cruel,
Mhm.
and how he fought with those people. He would repay cruelty with cruelty, right? He would
Mhm. Mhm.
impale them, all
Mhm.
of them, and
Mhm.
he was willing to do that in order to keep his kingdom and the people in his kingdom safe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That was the price that he was willing to pay.
Yeah.
So he was he was completely a devotee of the church, right? He was a believer and all of that.
Mhm.
He thought that he was doing the good thing, the right thing by protecting, and in return God was going to give him and bless his family and everyone in his kingdom with safety, right?
Right.
Now that man goes out, does all of these massacres, impales people and drinks their blood, in the story I'm saying.
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, all of a sudden he returns home to see that due to some type of trickery, from the Ottomans, because the
Mhm.
Ottomans spread some news that Vlad the Impaler was killed in battle.
Mhm.
So what his wife did was she committed suicide because she
Okay.
felt she couldn't live without him. She
Makes sense.
died. She
Yeah.
committed suicide,
Yeah.
and Vlad the Impaler comes to his castle to see his wife dead,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
he is enraged at God
Mhm.
because he believed that he made a bargain with God, that
Mhm.
I keep Western civilization, I keep Romanian safe,
Mhm.
and in return you protect me, but you
Yeah.
did not protect me,
Yeah.
therefore I curse you.
Yeah.
He stabs a sword directly into the crucifix, right?
Yeah.
Or in the cross.
Yep.
So
And then blood starts
God,
flowing out.
blood southward
Yeah.
is like a pretty dramatical moment where
Yeah.
he's cursed by God,
Yeah.
because he's pronounced his own curse against God.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of brilliant paradoxical thing that you know Francis Ford Coppola did,
Mhm.
is he put this whole protection of civilization and all of that, he put everything at odds with each other,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
He totally collapses the whole the mythos that people say about the others being cruel and so on, because here you have the person who is inflicting cruelty on the
Mhm.
outsider.
Mhm.
Now he turns into an outsider.
Right. Right.
Now he turns into a cruel monster,
Right.
and even far
Right.
more cruel monster than the outsider.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
collapses that, he deconstructs that whole otherizing of the outsider.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
totally collapses that whole narrative. So
Man, that
this
is,
is like, so you asked about whether it's redemptive.
yeah.
See, one of the things that Girard says is that the gospel story is one big deconstruction of myths and everything, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's deconstructing everything. It's
Mhm.
like it will be deconstructed to the point where it's like Jesus said, to the point where father will be against son, mother will be against daughter,
Yeah.
and everybody will be, everybody will be always in conflict with one another.
Yeah.
What 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 myths do is they unite everybody around a common single scapegoat, right? So
Mhm.
how are you going to kill the scapegoat when you don't have any unity?
Right. Right.
The myth
That
is
is
broken,
interesting. Yeah. That is that is an interesting interesting
yeah.
mechanic right there. I don't that's yeah, yeah.
Because you see, and this applies very much in the Dracula origin story.
Mhm.
He Vlad the Impaler had to otherize the Ottomans so that he
Mhm.
can pale each and every one of them,
Mhm.
inflict cruelty.
Right.
But now you're the monster. You don't
Right.
have any pretext of protecting anybody. Now
Right.
what you gonna do? You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah. But
So
you know
this
what, brother? I'm sorry. I'm with my brother Vlad. I'm with the brother Vlad. Okay. Because I feel like,
yeah,
man, listen, bro. I do my
yeah,
part. Right? Like I believe,
yeah.
like whatever, Christus Victor, Deus Vult, God wills it. Let's kick,
Crusader,
yeah, let's
Crusader
kick ass,
spirit.
bro.
Yeah.
Let's kick some ass. I'll do it in that, as long as you
But here's the thing, bro. In order to pick up the helmet or the sword of Vlad,
Yeah.
You have to risk becoming the monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's true.
is it in your, like, okay, you have these, the, young men coming into the church,
Mhm.
let's retake Jerusalem, let's liberate Constantinople,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
do you have what it takes to do that?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
because, bro, the Ottomans, and the Muslim world, and whatever it is, they know what it takes and they are ready to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We grew up watching Star Wars and Darth Vader and that Luke Skywalker and all of
Yeah.
that shit. What do we know? Bro, when we see a sword, we
Yeah.
will probably shit ourselves or get impaling people.
You know what
It takes
Yeah.
next level thing, and that's the brilliance of that origin story. You see the brilliance of that origin story. Bram
Yeah.
Stoker, for he wrote a fantastic Christian novel. He wrote about good defeating evil and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But Francis Ford Coppola did a pretty good job. I don't know if he wrote that himself or was it screenwriters. Whoever wrote that did a
Yeah.
brilliant job,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's complete deconstruction.
I wanna incorporate Blackula into this. And the reason why is because like, yeah, it was a black exploitation film. There was even some kind of even in that movie, I think there was a little bit of humor, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. Because, I remember that there was a girl, his first, so the girl that you were talking about in the in the Bram Stoker's Dracula, remember it was like the friend or whatever. She's the one that gets bitten first. Then she goes
Mm.
to the to the to the girl, to the one that he, because remember he like he sees her he sees the same woman that committed suicide. He thinks he sees her in the future, and he's like, oh, that's you, like I'm trying, I want to talk to you or whatever. So now in Blackula, um, it's sort of this, it's the same theme, it's the same story, but
Oh
the thing,
yeah, yeah. That is,
you know
so
what I'm
you're
talking.
you're telling me that Blackula did that first.
No,
The girl.
no. Blackula didn't do that first, but he what he does is, so in Blackula, he's a count too, or like so he's supposed to be like an African prince or something, right? And he goes to Count Dracula's house, right? And I guess they meet up and have dinner, and Dracula, uh, you know, infects him, and he becomes the new Dracula. But he's, now he's the black Dracula or the African Dracula, I don't know. And then his girl, the woman that he brought with him or something, I think something happens to her too, and he doesn't get to she or whatever, he becomes Dracula and then she dies, right? But he sees her like in another life, in a later life, and he's like, oh, I've been looking for you all my life or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now that stays, that whole theme kind of stays similar in Blackula, with the original. Okay, but now here's the difference. In the Blackula, he wants to be saved. Like he wants that spell or whatever is put on him to be healed. Like he wants to be healed. So he goes to this voodoo priestess lady who knows like African religious stuff, right? And she does these incantations, and she's trying to, like, basically she's trying to put the spirit, I think, in a voodoo doll, you know? So she's doing all this stuff and she's putting the doll, and it was starting to work or something. Like he's like, it's working or whatever. And then something happens to where it all goes bad. I think, one of the detectives come in or something like that, and they mess up the ritual or whatever it is, and it doesn't work. Okay, so my question is that, you know why did they change? Why did they want to present a different type of spirituality, or a different type of religious background in order for him to be saved? Why did they need the voodoo story or the African, rituals instead of the Christian one to save him? The
Right.
only thing I can see is it's because it's the 70s, right? And black people probably wanted to be a little more
It was
black power, you know.
yeah, it was the 70s was pretty important decade, one of the most important decade in American history,
Yeah.
in terms of culture, in terms of politics, everything. It was
Hmm.
total upheaval.
Hmm.
So like you, the whole black exploitation genre
Hmm.
was a declaration that white Hollywood does not have monopoly over the movies anymore.
Yeah.
We're gonna do our own stuff, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
So you have it started out as with movies like Dolomite
Mhm.
or Blackula or
Yeah.
Shaft,
Yeah.
where like all of these where stick up for the brother, that
Yeah.
kind of whole spirit. It was like
Yeah.
you had during that time, you had Muhammad Ali, you had
Hmm.
Malcolm X, you had the whole black pride thing, because prior to that black culture was pretty much in a way you could say a little bit modest, or like little bit like not totally Uncle Tom kind of way, but
Yeah.
like pretty by the rules stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
citizen, average citizen. But like in the 70s, it was a whole kind of revolutionary fervor. Of course, I'm talking about this to you, Shannon, a black man,
Yeah.
but like what I'm talking about,
I
right?
do. Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's like whole upheaval period, and you have the reason why African spirituality substituted the traditional Gothic Christianity of Bram Stoker was so it was a part of that,
Hmm.
like we can have our own horror movies,
Hmm.
and we can invoke our own cultural historic culture from our past to
Yeah.
instead of like borrowing Christianity or the white man's religion or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
We can make a mythos from our own spiritual historical roots. So
Yeah.
Blackula was like a start of that. And then of course it gets more and more, like you have much more nuanced, much more well written characters like Black Panther, all of that,
Hmm.
which were
Hmm.
much more authentic,
Hmm.
expressions. Like
Yeah.
Blackula is basically like a parody or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, at that time, they didn't think it was a parody. It was the whole black movie making movement
Yeah.
was in its infancy during
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
time. So of course
Mm.
they were taking baby steps.
Yeah. And
So
trying to pull from various
pull
different.
from
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
existing popular because the black audiences were already familiar with Dracula, and all of
Right.
that. But
Right.
like pitch them, all right, here's Blackula,
Yeah.
like whole black cast and everything.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
much more interested in seeing that. Like they were
Yeah.
pretty excited. Like, oh
Yeah.
wow, let's see how this is.
Yeah. And
So
it's funny how they got somebody. I don't remember what the actor's name is. Let me see here. Um, um, uh,
you're talking
William,
about,
his name is William Marshall. Yeah.
oh,
The
mhm.
actor who played Blackula. The thing that was always interesting to me is like they got somebody who looks like a black version of that guy you were talking about, and I keep forgetting his name too, from
Yeah.
Star Wars. Um,
You're talking about
who played Dracula.
Billy D. Williams.
No, no,
Billy
the
D.
white guy who played Dracula.
Oh,
Um,
Christopher Lee.
yeah,
Yeah,
Christopher Lee. Yeah, Christopher
yeah,
Lee. You know,
yeah,
uh, they kind of have a similar
yeah. Vibe
yeah,
similar.
vibe. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
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 that like old, you know, noble. He's got the deep voice. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. And he's
Uh,
very seductive.
Yeah,
Dracula is
yeah,
also very seductive. Like
yeah,
like a black version of Christopher Lee.
Yeah,
He
and
also
he does
wooes the
look, and he
ladies.
does look like Billy D. Williams too. I mean, kind of,
Yeah,
Billy D.
Billy D. Williams is, like he's a before they turned his character gay. He was
Yeah,
a bit of a ladies' man himself.
yeah, yeah. He played Lando. He played
Yeah,
Lando.
he was a he was a pretty charismatic character
Yeah,
in that Star
yeah,
Wars, albeit a little smaller role, but a very memorable role.
yeah, yeah. That perm was definitely a memorable. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
oh, that was back in the day. That was the thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Have
yeah.
you? I liked how in Coming to America, Eddie Murphy made fun of that whole porn thing.
Hmm,
With
hmm.
that whole
Oh,
hair
yeah, yeah, yeah.
advertisements.
Let your soul
What
glow.
so glow?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna have to do another one around that, around like the
around
comedy
the anthropology
and
of the porn.
everything, you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying, and the humor.
yeah.
Yeah, man, that'd be cool. That'd be cool, bro. All
Yeah,
right,
so
man.
like
Yeah,
it's like the whole 70s and everything.
yeah.
It was a reaction to that whole traditional Christian mindset, right?
Hmm,
Like
hmm.
we can have other cultures integrated into our culture as well, all of
Yeah,
that thing.
yeah,
And now then it slowly got to a point where vampires themselves became a kind of subculture in society, right?
yeah.
People, there are literally people who lead that whole lifestyle, bro. I mean,
Hmm.
they dress up like vampires and stuff
Yeah,
every day. So
yeah.
it became like a whole subculture, with the
Right.
goth movement and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
I
the
mean,
Twilight series.
I remember there
Yeah,
were people who wanted to live that life for real. Like they wanted
yeah,
to be that, you know what I'm saying? And they got
yeah,
all the what do you call it? The they get all the the surgeries and stuff that make their teeth sharper and all this
yeah,
stuff. And it's funny because it's like that also led to a lot of this weird stuff. To me, it's weird where you had a lot of
yeah.
people like early 2000s, they wanted to do all this body modification type stuff. They wanted to turn themselves into to you know they
Well,
tattooed their
it's
whole face, turning into cats and lizards and
yeah.
stuff like
Well,
that.
the reason they do that is like anything else, like it's concern for the marginalized that has saturated the culture.
Hmm,
So vampires as seen as like a fictionalized version of the marginalized,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
Like they're like the outsiders of the
hmm,
society. They're shunned and everything. They're it's like a like a, what do you say, disabled kind of
hmm,
category. And where the LGBTQ kind of like vampires, the way the 90s and Anne Rice wrote vampires, like they were attracted to the same sex,
hmm,
right? They were
hmm,
basically homosexuals, gay
hmm,
or whatever.
hmm, hmm,
So vampires are like, you have people like in this day and age, you have billionaires dressing up like in track pants,
hmm,
sweatshirts or
hmm,
whatever.
hmm.
The reason is because they don't want to be seen as like this upper aristocratic thing. That's like a big, in this day and age, that's
Yeah,
become a little bit of a big no-no,
yeah,
in society.
yeah,
Because that's seen like, if we see aristocrats from our perspective, we see
yeah,
them as like oppressors, people
yeah.
who took advantage of the lower classes.
Uh-huh.
And
So
the va-
if they can dress up like a middle class person or a poor person,
right.
then they'll be less they'll be less of a
Mhm.
scapegoat.
Yeah, they'll be like less of a target.
Mhm,
They'll be less of a scapegoat. They'll be less they'll be seen less of like oppressors,
mhm,
like oligarchs,
mhm, mhm.
exploiting the system or whatever. They'll be
Yeah,
they don't want to be seen as that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like Bill Gates. You never see him, you rarely see him, like big suit or tie or whatever. He's
Yeah.
always dressed in some, and I remember my friends telling me, Look at Bill Gates, see how smart he is."
Yeah.
I asked them, how is he smart? You tell me.
Yeah.
So he's like, he is very wise with his money and so on.
Yeah.
I'm like, shut up, bro. He's not very wise with his money. The reason he dresses like that is because he is very conscious of his class in society,
Hmm.
and he doesn't want to be seen as the rich arrogant guy, who has to be
Up on the
taken
hill.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, brought to heel, like a
Yeah.
French Revolution kind of spirit. We
Yeah.
don't we are off with his head. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to become like that.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to guillotine. He doesn't want to be guillotined.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't have guillotines, but we still have social. Like, today's generation, we the young kids call this rich kids,
Yeah.
nepo babies. You ever heard of the nepo babies?
No,
Like a
that
kid who
sounds funny
has,
though.
yeah, like Gen Z lingo, right? Gen Z, Gen Alpha lingo. So
Okay.
they call them nepo baby. Oh, he's a nepo baby. He's a privileged. It's like white privilege. That kind of language,
Okay.
nepo baby. So
Mhm.
oh, he's a nepo baby. So they don't want to be seen like that. They want to say, oh, no, I'm with you guys. See, I'm wearing your uniform,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I'm dressed in the same flannel shirt like you are dressed in, Shannon, right? Like
Yeah.
they want to be seen like that, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So the vampire thing is basically the same thing, like people there's a huge consumer base
Mhm.
who consume vampire stuff, everything, A to Z of vampire stuff.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
reason they do that is because vampires are seen as like a reaction to rigid Christianity. That's
Mhm.
why in today's vampire movies, you don't have crosses, you don't have holy waters, you
Mhm.
know, and they can walk around in daylight or whatever.
Yeah.
So the Christian that symbolizes, that weakening of Christianity. That symbolizes that they have proven victorious
Mhm.
against the rigid Christian Victorian culture, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So
Okay.
that's like a counterculture of sorts. That's
Yeah.
like a folk tale of counterculture.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Okay. Well, it took them a long time to do it. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
to say, I mean that book was written what? You said the 19th century, but
Hmm.
just, kind of, when the Ottomans were still a thing,
Right.
up until what, the 90s when it transformed into this whole thing of being a marginalized, a victim, and then a
Yeah.
homosexual, and then this, all of this stuff, and so I wonder if we're sort of making a return back to
Mhm.
stories like that having a Christian motif again,
Oh yeah, yeah. We
because
we
there's
are
a like,
certainly.
yeah.
See, generations always are reacting to prior generations.
Hmm.
The boomers reacted to what was it? The
The
greatest
Great
generation,
Generation.
the
Yeah.
great generation,
Yeah.
and then the Gen Xers reacted to the boomers,
Yeah.
right? The Gen
Yeah.
Xers were more grungy, more
Yeah.
metal,
Yeah.
against the hippie. The boomer generation's much more
Yeah.
happy go kind of spirit.
Yeah.
And then the 2000s and everything was again like more popish,
Hmm.
Britney Spears and everything. There was a
Hmm.
reaction to the Gen Xers.
Hmm.
So now we have, now if you notice, like, I recently saw three horror movies.
Hmm.
One was two of them were the Black Phone movies.
Hmm.
The Black Phone movies, there's like B movie kind of thing, right? But they did very well in the box office.
Hmm.
I was expecting a lot of like blood and gore and all of that stuff in those movies,
Hmm.
but one thing struck me very well, very profoundly, in that with all three movies, the Black Phone movies and the Frankenstein movie that came out recently, which is getting high reviews and all of that, all three movies were very pro-Christian,
Okay. Okay.
very pro-Christian. Because the
Yeah.
Black Phone movies, you have siblings fighting against a serial killer, and
Mhm.
then in the sequel the ghost of that serial killer. And
Mhm.
they're always quoting scripture, they're being very badass about their faith,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then in Frankenstein, the original novel, the Frankenstein, it has a very dark ending where both the monster dies and the creator Frankenstein dies, right?
Mhm.
In this movie, both of them get reconciled.
Mm. Okay. Wow.
And
Yeah.
there's even a section in the middle of that movie which is like talking about love of God's love for his creation and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
And there's like this wise old man who is teaching the stories to this monster.
Yeah.
This monster is saying, I'm just a mistake, I'm a mistake, I'm a creation, I'm like, like made from different parts of human bodies,
Yeah.
I'm nothing. And this old man says, no, you are a person, you have a soul, because
Yeah.
if you did not have, why would what would give you the ability to love, you know
Mm.
and
Mm.
so like by the end of the, like, throughout the movie you have this fight between Frankenstein
Mhm.
and the monster, because
Mhm.
Frankenstein thinks he created a monster that's
Mhm.
killing everybody, and he made a mistake and he wants to undo his mistake, so
Mhm.
he wants to kill the monster.
Mhm.
But at the end he realizes he doesn't have to kill the monster.
Mhm. Yeah.
He gets reconciled, both of
Yeah.
them. That you would not have seen that during the Victorian era, bro.
Yeah.
In the Victorian era the monster had to be killed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now the monster is able to repent.
Yeah.
Vampires are able to repent now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're seeing this for push forward, and you can see it in the wider culture, right? Like
Yeah.
people are coming in to churches again,
Yeah.
right? Like the
Yeah.
young men especially, they're coming into
Yeah.
the churches,
Yeah. Yeah.
they want
Yeah.
to
We,
get,
we
yeah,
it's funny because I think about that sometimes. I say, man, those of us who were, you know, although we're still, fairly young, we came in, in the church when things were very troublesome, you know, with Christianity, everything, you know, you know, it wasn't like this, when we were younger, you know what I'm saying? And growing up, like all this information, all these talks, all these podcasts, all these, this revival, that's going on. Um, I don't remember that in my 20s. You know what I'm
no,
saying?
it's pretty,
It's
it's
amazing to
pretty,
see it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing started with people like Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
and, this whole, like, already the new atheist movement, it was
Hmm.
dying out. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden you have, like, regardless of what his condition is today,
Hmm.
Jordan Peterson had a big deal
Hmm.
to do with how people started to look at religion,
Hmm.
especially Christianity.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was one of the things I think that sparked the
Hmm.
entire revival, right?
Yeah.
And the seeing the lunacy of the left and everything, people
Yeah. Yeah.
say, and seeing, like, I think more people came into church during the COVID years than any other
Hmm.
year in recent history.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing. I think that really, you know, I think that situation really put a lot of people they had to really think about their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
mean, everybody, like, not to cut you off, but
mhm.
everybody just realized how fragile society is, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
these things that we take for granted can be taken away anytime.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanna land the plane on this thing here, which is you talked about how Christ talks about dividing, people. He said, I didn't come to
Yeah,
bring peace, but a sword, and everything. And so you said, okay, you can't, you know, there's no scapegoat to really rally around, right? But in a way, wouldn't Christ say, yeah, you can't look for a scapegoat, but I am the scapegoat. Like you can come to me as the one to
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to sacrifice daily. You know, I don't know how that anthropological theological
Well, that's
wording is, but
what you're talking about. I think that was shown in that movie Silence. Have you seen that movie Silence about the persecution of Christians in Japan?
I think so. Yeah, 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 yeah. With the monks, with the priests that go over there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they have like a. I mean, it's just yeah, that was a lot to watch. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean
Well,
the whole
remember,
thing.
in one of the most important things in the story of that movie is stepping on this stone that the Japanese have made,
Hmm.
which show the crucifixion, right?
Hmm.
So they had to deny Christ, so, in order to be allowed to live.
Hmm.
Otherwise, they would be killed because Christianity was outlawed in Japan.
Hmm.
So one of the most important, like near the end of that, you had the priest, right? The missionary priest.
Hmm.
He had to, like, all of his parishioners, or like all of his all of lay people were like being tortured around him.
Hmm.
And you have this Japanese inquisitor telling the priest that if you step on this crucifixion stone,
Hmm.
everybody will be set free. They don't have to suffer,
Hmm.
but you have to step on this stone.
Hmm.
And the priest doesn't want to do that. He he doesn't want to do that because he
Hmm.
would be betraying his faith, right, if he steps on the icon of the crucifixion.
Yeah,
But
right.
what happens is he hears a voice that
Hmm.
encourages him to step on the crucifixion.
Hmm.
And that's kind of to your point, Shannon, is that many people think that that's like a subversive thing, like denounce your religion or whatever, to be to say. But that's it's much more nuanced than that,
Hmm.
because Christ did come into the world to take all of the blame,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
we all be reconciled. So
yeah,
he is the ultimate scapegoat.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
it depends on how we, approach that,
Hmm. Hmm.
because a lot of it has to do with how we treat each other.
Hmm.
Like we've discussed these like subcultures and all of these things.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are a reaction to being alienated or marginalized or whatever.
Hmm.
So the question for us today is, if we want this revival to really bear fruit or whatever, there has to be some meat to it.
Hmm.
Otherwise it'll be another phase.
Yeah, yeah,
It'll come and go.
yeah. That's good. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, like we have to,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
John said, not to drag this out anymore, but John said that not by your Christian nationalism, not by your leftism will they know you, but they will know you by how much you love each other.
Mm, hmm.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah,
And like
yeah,
we have all of this revival and all this, but
yeah,
do we have the ability to love
yeah,
the enemy?
yeah, yeah. That's I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm trying to fight. I'm trying to fight being on the side of Vlad the Impaler, bro. Give me some time. I'm working on
Well, Vlad the Impaler was redeemed at the
it.
end of the
Yeah,
story.
that's right.
He was
Yeah,
he was set free from his curse
yeah.
by he got he was killed, but he still got set free from his curse. And he was like they showed him being united with his lover in
Yeah,
heaven.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a
All
happy
right,
ending.
bro.
Even if you have Vlad the Impaler, there's a happy ending.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. All right, bro. It's always good talking to you, man.
Yeah, fun discussion, bro. I
Yeah, let's do
loved
this
it.
again, bro. We're
Oh,
gonna
sure.
have some more talks like this. This is fun, man.
All right.
All
All
right,
right.
bro.
Take care.
You too, man.